Malware. Okay. So here's some of the items that you'll be looking for if you're trying to catch malware activity. Right? Your web browser artifacts, the web history. There's a web cache that you can look in. The downloads folder is a pretty good place to look too. They do have a Java cache, and then there's a Shockwave and Flash cache. Some of those are pretty good places to look for unusual activity. And then this question, was the user a victim of a drive-by download, or did they execute a downloaded application? Sometimes that you'll have to go look at the execution piece of that to figure out when that happened. So other malware vectors, attached devices. We talked about USB keys. You can ask the question, right? Did the user possibly execute malware from an external device? And it could be, when you say external device, it could also be perhaps a CD-ROM if USB keys are not authorized. Email was an attachment that was infected. And, for the most part, I'm thinking, do most people have email filtering for attachments like EXEs? Can you send EXEs across your network? Probably not too much, right?
Right.
Not anymore anyway. So, right. So for the most part, those should be, but of course, be careful with the batch type files, and there's probably some other ones out there. There are like Microsoft macro attacks that actually put a coding inside of a document, and all you have to do is that enable content button that you push when you open up either Word or your Word document or your Excel spreadsheet, and that macro will fire at that point. So sometimes those are hard to find. Vulnerable applications, right? Is the software or client server the most recent versions? Because even one version back, sometimes there's an exploit there that has not been taken care of. So try to get the most recent. And does that version of software have known vulnerabilities, right? And you can go to the exploit database that I just showed you during the last segment and be able to look up for that version. Right? Malware persistence. Once that malware gets on board, the attackers generally want to be able to access it and keep it working and possibly restart again should power be disconnected or if the user logs out. So some of the places that they'll put some of this to maintain their persistence is using admin tools, schedule tasks to run certain things, and they may just run their piece of malware. It's pretty straightforward and pretty sneaky. The startup folder, not everybody goes in and looks and sees exactly what's in their startup folder, but if you put a copy of malware, as soon as you start up your computer, it will run those particular applications in that folder. There are parts in the registry that you can look for malware persistence, like the auto start, the run once, and user init. You can go in there and you can find it. If it's a run once or a run, you can find a list of the programs or the applications that are set to be run or run just once, and also installed services. And then web browser extensions, browser helper objects. These are plugins that do additional things, and if you use it in a malicious way, essentially you can tell your browser off to the side where the user really can't see it to go ahead and run a piece of software. Most of the time it's supposed to be to help make things easier in the browser or make things faster and more usable, but again, if you use it maliciously, obviously that's a bad thing. And then you can do DLL replacements. That's where I was talking about the open handles. If a particular program uses 5 or 6 DLLs and the attacker knows what the name of those DLLs are, they may put their malware in the same name DLL and then replace that one. So the next time you run that application, their malware fires. Okay, malware detection. the trace. What type of antivirus or security software is used on the system? Was there anything detected around the time of the incident, right? There's a lot of times where users kind of ignore it, right? They just something pops up, blinks, and they just kind of click OK, and then they don't worry about it. And there's also how many organizations don't necessarily use centralized logging, especially for antivirus. So hopefully they do use some of these things. And the interview process, if there's an incident and you have users to talk to, you can ask them about that. Have you had any antivirus pop-ups? And they may admit to that. Some of them may not. Okay. So for the particular vendors, in a Windows system anyway, here's the path to the vendor product and where their log files are. Should they have quarantine or if they have alerts, these are the locations, generally speaking, I believe for Windows 7 for the most part for this. But you can look these up online as well if you have a particular server, 2012 or something like that, that you want to go and look for where these things are located. Then again, if there's a central server for the antivirus, then perhaps you can go there instead of to each machine. Hopefully that would be the case. Okay, and then areas of interest, again, the event log records. You'll get indications in the security application log and custom application log if you have malware that triggers. And then there are proprietary application logs depending on the security system that you have running on your system. And then quarantine locations as well, right, where McAfee or Avast or AVG puts any files they find that they think are questionable and they quarantine them. You might want to go look there as well to see if there's a copy of something that's a part of the incident. So again, these are supposed to be vendor agnostic, so these are not names necessarily that are being advocated. But if you happen to have any of these, Kaspersky, Avast, McAfee, and Semantic Endpoint in this case, these are some of the places that the logs exist for warnings and alerts that pop from these particular vendors. Okay. And here's a text-based log entry from Semantic Endpoint. Kind of tells you some of the information on what it is, event infection, audit, success, so it was successful, and it's part of the threat report. And they put some of the information on the right there. And as I mentioned before, some logs are in binary format. You can look at them using a hex reader like this, but generally speaking, they show up like that. So you'll have to take that into consideration when you go and look for malware through the antivirus logs. So you can do manual scanning. Pretty much what you do is you mount them, the images, in something like an FTK imager or NCase imager. There's a few others out there that you can mount. They can be the raw DD format, the VMDK. There's a disk from a virtual machine can be mounted. And they also use the EFW or E01 format. And then once you mount it, it'll show up pretty much like this. If this is a Windows system, it'll just show up, but it's not allowed to be modified at all. And then you go ahead and you run, and you choose that as your volume to run your scan against when you use your antivirus software. This part of it, anyway, is pretty straightforward. It may take a while, depending on how much material, how much data is in there, but that makes it somewhat easier. And then this is just showing some successful finds. In this case, they used CLAM AV the scan.